elite sports people and athletes are using our products. When you look at all the subcategories of dairy now, Kefir is the fastest growing subcategory within there. Many of the other categories are actually in decline.
As you said, with people taking so much more of an interest in their gut health and their overall well-being, they are prepared to invest, but they're not prepared to invest in products that don't taste good.
3/4 of the adult population know about the importance of gut health, but they don't really know what to do about it. As a kind of a health brand, we're looking at ways that we can find our place in there that delivers on something that's really delicious because people want something that's tasty, but actually delivers against their sort of health needs too.
Welcome back to another episode of Getting to Grow. On this week's episode, we have Vince, who is CMO of Biotiful Gut Health. Slightly different episode this week because although Vince isn't a founder, he's a seriously strong member of the team. So I can't wait to get into all about it. But prior to you coming on the podcast, I was having a little LinkedIn stalk, and you've had an amazing career today about what you've been doing before Biotiful. So yeah, do you mind giving me a little background into you and what you're doing before?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been really fortunate, like I say, the best part of 20 years to found myself working in founder-led businesses. Firstly, for sort of just over a decade in creative agencies, brand agencies, all founder-led, all fast growth, which I think was great in setting me up for where I've ended up now. And that you learn from entrepreneurs the entire time, and then particularly in creative agencies and brand agencies when you are shaping brands and working with clients to advise them on how to be more entrepreneurial, particularly with the bigger brands. It culminated in a sort of more of a classic growing up in agency world, which the final step there was launching an agency with a number of, I guess, friends and colleagues. It was called Trailer Park, and it was an extension of a US agency that had been bought by the Engine Group. And we identified this amazing opportunity in the UK, particularly within the Engine Group, which had 13 other creative marketing agencies in that we were sort of outsourcing about £10 million worth of content creation.
Wow.
And this was back in sort of 2014 when content was king. Everyone was starting to really use this term content. So we identified this great opportunity there to bring a load in-house. And it was one of the first sort of bigger agency groups that did it. And the idea was really just to work with the other agencies in the group and then bringing a bit more revenue. But within 2 or 3 weeks of opening our doors, we ended up winning Red Bull TV as our founding client and forgot about kind of the internal kind of revenue opportunity. And within 12 months was turning into sort of £4 million agency business, working cross-collaborative with the US, Austria. We won Alton Towers, we won Now TV. And all of a sudden, within the space of sort of 6 to 12 months, we couldn't sort of believe it. And I guess it was that sort of entrepreneurial drive that made me start to think about, okay, what are great brands that are about to potentially tip into kind of that hockey stick moment. And being a big food and drink fan myself, I was already a fan of Fever Tree. My wife was paying over the odds for tonic water, and I could never really understand that until I started sort of to try it myself. But this was when, back in 2015, Fever Tree probably had 10% prompted awareness amongst gin drinkers. So it wasn't particularly big. They were probably about 20 people. And I actually went and pitched this sort of content vision to Tim, one of the founders there, to say, look, you've got this great opportunity to almost build a community around content, how to really enjoy drinks and establish yourself as the experts in mixing. Because the beauty of where Fever Tree were at that point was they weren't just a tonic water, sort of a single tonic water, they had different flavours and variants that could mix with different types of gin. And this was a few years after sort of Sip Smiths was starting to get on the scene, back in sort of, they launched 2010 and this was sort of 2015. And Tim didn't really like the idea at all. But funnily enough, we then ended up talking more about brand vision and actually where the brand should be going. And inadvertently, I failed to sell the business that I'd founded, but ended up selling myself. And 6 months later, I was the marketing director of Fever Tree in the UK.
That's amazing! Wow.
Yeah.
So, because Fever Tree's whole thing was about obviously when most of your drink is tonic, that should be the thing that makes your drink taste great. And that was such an amazing campaign because it really did make people think about, actually, yeah, that's so true. When you are drinking, the majority of it is the tonic versus the gin. That also has to really complement the gin.
Absolutely, and I think Fever Tree is a brilliant brand example of, they went into a commoditized category, and people were sleepwalking down the aisle and just grabbing own brand. Schweppes. I mean, Schweppes has been around since 74, I think it is, and they had over the years just kind of cost cutted and looked at ways to deliver greater shareholder value, but they didn't have any competitors in that space. And Fever Tree came in with this idea of, let's create the best tasting tonic water that exists. Let's almost forget about cost. If we were to create the best thing that would complement gin, where would we get the ingredients from? And what was great about it, Tim and Charles quite literally went to the ends of the earth and found the best suppliers of the ingredients that existed on the planet.
Wow.
And they tell the stories much better than I do, but some of it, they had to overcome challenges, going to find the last remaining quinine plantation in the Congo that was growing quinine. Quinine essentially is the bitterness that you get in tonic water.
Yeah.
But it's also used in anti-malarial, so it's a pharmaceutical ingredient for anti-malaria drugs. But there's only one place in the world that exists that still has the strains of the original cinchona tree. And this was almost before the internet was really established, so back in 2004, 2005, long before I got involved in the business, but tracking down, this small little plantation on the Rwanda-Congo border, and then basically backpacking to get there, to then discover the best ingredients. And all these kind of challenges they overcame for all of their products for the first 10 years before it became easier to find ingredients. And I think this sort of never compromise mentality, even today, sort of very much sits in the Fever Tree brand. And I think going back to your question, what they did differently was put quality first, and then consumers kind of started to get into that. And your reference there to 3/4 of your drinks is a mix with the best. People didn't think about that. Gin and tonic had fallen out of favour. No one was really drinking it anymore until Fever Tree really came back into it and got, particularly chefs, the trade, to understand the importance of what actually is the biggest portion of a drink. And then, I say, it seems like it was an overnight success, but actually it was about 10, 15 years before that real success landed in the mainstream.
Yeah, and then Itsu as well, you did some time there.
Westway?
Itsu?
Oh, Itsu Grocery, yeah. So, I mean, that's another absolutely fascinating business. I mean, Julian Metcalf, of Pret a Manger fame initially, bringing inspired Asian food to the UK through the restaurants. I was very lucky to partner with him in looking at how do we take the concept of the restaurants into the home. Now, the Itsu Grocery business was already very much in its growth phase when I joined the business there, but our kind of opportunity that we identified was, how do we take on the likes of Gusto, HelloFresh, Pasta Evangelists, and this was out the back of lockdown, and watching these D2C recipe boxes kind of start to fly. And to this day, I'm still very sad that it wasn't a success. But unfortunately, we tried to launch at a time when there was no cardboard because everyone was stashing it in their garages in COVID. And I don't know if you remember when KFC ran out of chicken.
Yes.
Yeah, it was around that time as well that they were trying to launch a box with chicken probably being the main protein. That was particularly challenging, and along with that, the rising costs of online acquisition. But again, working with a very visionary leader who, again, similarly with the likes of Fever Tree, can look beyond, consumer data and insight and just have these ideas. And all of this, I guess, has sort of helped culminate in the way that I approach things. The visions that they have might not be really structured, but the role of a marketing leader in these kind of visionary founder-led businesses is about, how do you take the seeds of these ideas and turn them into something that then delivers commercially.
Yeah.
And I've been really fortunate to do that in a number of businesses now.
Wow, an amazing career. It's so cool that you worked in these fabulous brands that are like really, truly like big household names that we all know, and you've managed, like, you've come in and you've had your stance in it. So, which has obviously then led you on to Biotiful. which for my listeners at home, listening that can't see me right now, they are a gut health dairy brand. Is that how, yeah?
That's correct. So Biotiful Gut Health, we are the UK's #1 Kefir brand. Kefir is it's actually born out of a 2,000-year-old recipe from the Caucasus Mountains. Essentially fermented milk, live kefir cultures, and it is probably the best natural gut health solution that is out there on the market. And the business has been around now for 12 years. It was founded by Natasha Bose, who is a former professional figure skater. And growing up, she grew up on kefir, and when she moved to the UK, there was nothing that existed. And it wasn't actually until she had her daughter that she was moving on to follow-on milks and looked at the back of pack and realised what went into kind of follow-on milks. This very long ingredient list, which she didn't really know what half the ingredients were, really inspired her to think, okay, actually there must be an opportunity here. And having grown up on sort of such a natural solution to gut health, thought, well, how do you go about doing this? And she had a finance background, so she wasn't in food and drink. She had never had any experience in the dairy industry, but 12 years later has created and essentially pioneered the kefir category.
Completely. I mean, when I walk down the supermarket, I was like, you guys are the ones I see when I look at gut health. You sit alongside. Do you sit in the same bay as Activia?
So when we look at, I guess, the sort of gut health and natural health, Activia, interestingly, they've sort of shifted their positioning a bit away from kind of digestive health to gut health, mainly through kind of the vernacular and how people are understanding things. But yeah, I mean, as an ex-Danona, and I still have a little bit of an allegiance to the brands. Is that they're brilliant people who work there, but equally, yeah, we do sit alongside them. They're trying to do the same as we are, but ultimately, Kefir is a different product and a different proposition to what Activia offer.
Completely.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that you when you obviously had your time at Danone, has that really helped with your brand, like the way you can then put what you learnt there into Biotiful? Has that been like really, I guess the word is, I don't know, was helpful?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I was at Danone, and it was short period. Yeah, it was transfer. I mean, I was at Danone only for a year, and that was mainly to help with the restructure. And actually, I oversaw the communications for every single Danone brand, so it wasn't just the dairy category.
Yeah.
However, that was my first kind of experience of dairy and understanding the role in which different subcategories played. Particularly the Actimals and the Activias, which are established household brands. But that certainly helped going into an exciting growth subcategory. And I'm sure we'll come to talk about it. But when you look at all the subcategories of dairy now, Kefir is the fastest growing subcategory within there. Many of the other categories are actually in decline.
Yeah, gut health has taken an actual, as you said, hockey stick, exponential growth in the last couple of years. People are like going mad for gut health and your gut and the gut-brain relationship, and people are really understanding it. People are taking much more care into what they eat, back of packs. As you said, the clean label thing's becoming really important. We're expecting brands to be really transparent. We want to see what's in it, what's in the process. So can you just describe in how you see the overall brand vision of Biotiful? How would you what would you say is your overall brand vision?
So, I mean, we exist to make gut health accessible to all. And we want to do that by being the go-to natural gut health brand. And I'll probably emphasise this natural gut health, because gut health is really starting, well, it's entered the mainstream now. It's not starting to, it really is entered the mainstream.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant that you've got these experts like Tim Spector.
I was literally about to say with Zoe and his gut shots.
Maybe we'll come and talk about that, but the gut shots, but the whole Zoe idea of people understanding their bodies better. He's been a massive advocate of gut health for a while, and talking about the link between gut health and overall health. The late Michael Mosley has always been a big advocate, in what he did around the importance of gut health. And we actually ran our own proprietary research last year that identified 3/4 of the adult population know about the importance of gut health, but they don't really know what to do about it, or why, actually, in some instances. So, when I talk about us being the go-to gut health brand or natural gut health brand, there's a real role for us to play to help educate and ensure people can understand why natural gut health is better than gut health. Because everywhere you look now, there's brands sort of piling in and talking about we're gut healthy, and actually what defines gut health isn't, well, we don't have anything bad in our product, so it's not bad for your gut. Actually, it's about having things in there that can really help your gut through digestion, but also all the other things that are the consumer benefit. I mean, better gut health can lead to better sleep, the way you manage stress, your skin. So many things are linked directly to that, and that's why our mission and vision, I guess, is to people think, oh, gut health, I've heard about this, and right, Biotiful is a brand I need to go to, whether that's in a community that we're building, or whether it's go and look at what products we've got on shelf. And the long-term vision here is it's not just about being a Kefir brand; it is the go-to gut health brand.
Yeah, gosh, amazing. So, can I ask you a question then?
Yeah, sure.
What defines what's gut health? What defines the word gut health?
So I think when it boils down to it, it's already been a to do. When it boils down to it, it's always come down to how your body's functioning.
Yeah.
And good gut health is essentially your digestive system operating well. But as a result of that, if it's operating really well, then the impact that has on other parts of your body is really key.
So the process of Kefir then, because obviously it is slightly more sour than traditional dairy yogurt. How does that work?
Well, I think when you have your sort of absolute natural, no flavouring or anything like that, it is a little bit more sour. I don't actually know why.
Yeah.
So you might not want to put this little bit in, but I guess where we've looked at expanding, and with this idea, we've always wanted to make the gut health category as accessible as possible. So when you look at the way that we've sort of range extensions, new products coming in, of course we have our core product, which is a bit more sour than maybe natural yogurt. But equally, just in our drinks alone, we have our raspberry and our strawberry, which then expanded into like the vanilla as well, which is very much fits sort of a breakfast occasion. And we do know a lot of that is consumed at breakfast time. But a lot of people aren't necessarily going to want to buy into a new category at an occasion where they will consume other things. So most recently, we just launched our Delightful range, which is much more, indulgent flavours. We have one of them here, which is this is just one of them, but we have
caramelised biscuit.
Caramelised biscuit flavour.
Wow.
We have banoffee pie, and we have lemon drizzle.
My gosh, how delicious.
And the idea of this was sort of, we'd identified the fact that sometimes people are very much looking for a taste-led solution, particularly in the afternoon snacking occasion or after meal. And while a lot of people do sort of have maybe our flavoured drinks or yogurts on those occasions, we know that that people are often looking for that little treat, permissible treat. So we've just launched this range, which we believe will entice a whole new consumer into the category.
Yeah.
And similarly with some of our other products, that it's how can we, from one stage, get people to change what they're doing, but not sacrifice on taste, because taste for any food and drink brand is the most important.
So key, isn't it?
But people want to balance that, taste and health. And going back to your original question here about it being a bit more sour, well, actually, it doesn't need to be. And working with natural ingredients, we can still create great tasting drinks that are still essentially natural gut health products, but deliver on that taste demand that consumers want. So it's not always about kind of having to sacrifice on taste.
Yeah, I think taste is so key. If you're going to get repeat customers and people trying the product, loving it and buying it again, it has to taste good, especially when you are paying, like a premium for a product. If they're prepared to part pays with their pounds, it needs to taste good. And as you said, with people taking so much more of an interest in their gut health and their overall well-being, they are prepared to invest, but they're not prepared to invest in products that don't taste good.
Yeah.
And I certainly am not as a consumer of it anyway.
And I think that's one of the sort of challenges that identified when I first came into Biotiful about sort of 14, 15 months ago was, the way we're showing up as a brand. Like, there was no question that is the product brilliant, and probably sound biased, but it's the best product on the market. And immediately when people try it, they might not really know what Kefir is, but like, wow, that tastes really great. But was the way in which you were showing up as a brand really delivering on those taste cues and that quality element? Because ultimately, when you're walking down the aisle, first thing you come across is the pack. But then equally, when you're starting to market a brand to people, regardless of what channel, whether it's posters, digital, sampling, is it landing the right cues? And actually, when we ran our research, when I first came on board, the diagnosis, and trying to really understand what do we need to do next, actually we weren't delivering against kind of the taste. And I don't think that was helped around the perceptions. Health food in general always has negative taste perceptions. I mean, particularly fermented foods. I mean, whoever's like, I want some fermented cabbage. Doesn't really get you that excited.
Exactly.
So the first thing sort of we started to do was, okay, well, how can we change how we show up? And you can start to see that through some of the cues on new ranges. Actually showing the creaminess and the texture and little bits of kind of delicious biscuit that's coming through.
Because you recently rebranded as well, didn't you? Because you were Biotiful Dairy.
That's correct. So that was before I joined. It was about sort of 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and I guess it was a sort of a natural evolution. Obviously, we started as Biotiful Dairy. We were just a dairy product, but the vision for Natasha has always been to make gut health as accessible to all. And that wasn't necessarily always going to be in the dairy category. And while we only launched our first ambient product this year, it was a natural transition to helping consumers navigate themselves into Kefir. Because one of the other things that I found through the research that we did was people didn't associate Kefir with gut health. So one of the things that we've had to do over the last sort of year is really build that association between the two. And before I joined, Natasha had kind of understood that and identified that. Thus the shift from Biotiful Dairy to Biotiful Gut Health.
That surprises me actually, because as soon as I think of Kefir, I think of gut health. But maybe that's because I'm so involved in FMCG and food in the world that to me that seems really obvious. So that's really interesting that there wasn't that link.
Well, I sometimes joke with the team, but when we did this research, things like drinking more water, eating your 5 a day came higher with the association with good gut health than Kefir did. But the one that actually always makes me laugh is mindfulness is better for your gut health than Kefir. And obviously
I guess
not,
it's as a whole, like if you slow down when you eat,
Yeah, but I think this is sort of the education
Yeah.
that is needed. But we talked about Tim Spector and the likes of that, and gut health now entering the mainstream. I'm really, really hoping that all these different sources can educate the population as quickly as possible. Not necessarily for our sort of benefit, but for the health of the nation's benefit. Because ultimately, we're facing a health crisis here in the UK. Obesity rates, heart disease, all of these things. So anything that healthy brands can do, working with the retail partners to make it easier for the population to access better food, to be healthier, whether that's gut health or general health. I'm so for that.
So are you really pro then Tim Spector's collaboration with M&S on their gut health shot?
Well,
I haven't actually tried it.
Well, obviously
you'd rather be you guys.
Well, I mean, we that was the first thing we did. We tried it when it came in, and actually, if you were to compare the ingredients, essentially it's what we deliver through our Kefir. Zoe's built a really strong brand, and it's great to have.
I wish that was mine.
Well,
I wish, why didn't I come up with Zoe? You think that would be the thing, but no, apparently or something.
But then I guess when you look at it, you could buy a £2 gut health shot, or you can buy £2 for maybe 150ml. You can buy 1 litre of Kefir for £3.50.
Talk to me a little bit about the versatility of Kefir. What's the serving suggestion?
I mean, this is the great thing about Kefir. It probably is the most versatile gut health solution, or possibly even dairy solution there is for consumers out there. So, Milk replacement, we're seeing loads of people now starting to switch their milk and pouring it over cereals.
In tea? No.
I mean, personally, I've not tried it.
Yeah,
I have tried it in tea, but it didn't.
I feel like it's curdle, maybe.
Yeah, and ultimately, you want to put enough in your body with the live cultures to really, it's a probiotic, so you want to have enough. Now, I mean, if you fancy it in your tea, you can put caramelised biscuit in your tea if you really want.
Yeah, to be fair, York should do a caramelised, like you do like a biscuit tea. Yeah. So that with that, I'm gonna try it.
You can drink it. I mean, you can drink it straight from the bottle. I mean, I wouldn't. If you're new into Kefir, I wouldn't start drinking half a litre a day. It'd be a bit of a shock for the body.
Okay.
But, you can have it with fruit, and then obviously we've got a spoonable, which is essentially just you'd eat it like yogurt, but it's yogurt with benefits. So it really is versatile. You can exactly. The fact is we're appearing a lot in convenience now, so smaller formats, which means it's I could get a bottle of Coke, or I could get a milkshake, or I could get Kefir. If you want sort of something that's a little bit more filling to have on the go. So it truly is versatile, and having not really engaged with the category before coming in, now I'm sort of amazed by how more people not using it. But that's partly my job. Is to get more people using it in a way that fits their lifestyle and what they're doing.
I mean, dairy is such like a beast of a category, isn't it? It's probably, I don't actually know, but probably after like fresh produce, the second biggest category, maybe within supermarkets, up there. Yeah. Either it's definitely not one. I think one is fresh produce, but like it's second or third. Surely, like that household penetration of dairy, right, is significant. It must be nearly 100% because milk.
Yeah, I mean, dairy is probably not 90%.
Exactly.
I mean, I think about 10% of the UK population
don't have milk in their fridge, but it's probably very
dairy free. But the dairy category, particularly the yogurts category, it's had a challenging few years. And actually, it's one of the categories that has been in decline. When you think about the shift in what people perceive as health and diet, there's almost the older perception, and my parents' generation is no sugar, fat-free, and so how they sort of grow up, slimming world, all those sorts of things. But then this whole new generation that's coming through is actually a bit of sugar's fine, and actually fats are a really positive thing, and protein's really important, and the role calcium plays. So there's a whole different view on how people perceive health. And I think the dairy and yogurt category has sort of won and lost because of this. You see the diet brands like hemorrhaging volume, whereas you see brands like us or the Kefir category and the protein category, they are the fastest growing subcategories in dairy now. And we this week got the latest data from IRI, and Kefir, for the £2.5 billion yogurt category, we've just entered the top 10 yogurt brands.
Wow.
As a Kefir brand that's 5 years old. And we're the fastest growing yogurt brand in the category. And then you look at protein as well. Protein has had a phenomenal few years. Because people are understanding that actually you really do need to consume protein as part of your
there's been a lot of like that, like black label proteins.
Yes.
Like the like Arla and I think it is Danone do like a GoPro.
Get Pro.
Yeah,
it's really massive. It's really massive.
It is masculine. How do you feel about plant-based dairy then?
So, I mean, plant-based is still a big opportunity. I mean, the latest sort of data and trends you read, about 10% of the UK population is kind of looking for dairy alternatives at the moment, and it still continues to grow. But I guess more broadly, plant-based and dairy-free, again, they've had quite a challenging time because it's really difficult to deliver good quality, natural dairy-free products or dairy alternative products or plant-based. You look at a lot of stuff on the shelves, and the reason it hasn't been doing well is because it's ultra-processed and it's full of absolute rubbish ingredients. So there's a big role to play for it, and one of the things we've tried to do, we have our oat yogurts, which are made like oat base, and we chose oat base over soya base because actually it's good for fibre as well as soya less so. And the texture you get from it's much better. but it's really challenging to create these products.
And make them taste really good.
And that's
because like Outpro is, you know, the soya dairy-free yogurt. It's quite pourable. It's quite watery.
Well, yeah, it certainly can be.
Yeah, and it's not very like appealing to have that as for breakfast.
Yeah. And then you have at other end, you got like coconut bases, which are really sweet and delicious, but really high in saturated fat. So you know, for anyone who's consuming yogurt, coconut-based kind of dairy-free every day, it's actually not great for you over the long term. So you know, there's a big challenge and opportunity for, you know, dairy brands or dairy-free brands to really win in this space. But I guess the approach we're taking, because you know, we talked about a shift from being just dairy to gut health. You know, launching things like our new meal boosters.
Yeah, so talk to me about these. These look great, and I love the packaging.
Right, so
what do you do with a meal booster?
So these are Biotiful's meal boosters. Essentially, these, rather than being a product in its own right that you would consume alone, you quite literally add it to meals you're already having. So thus the name meal boosters. So whether you're creating a smoothie in the morning, whether you're adding it to your cereal, you can add it to salads, you can even stir it into a curry. And it's sort of oat-based, so it's high in fibre. Again, it's dairy-free, but it has all the other benefits of kind of gut health products we do. It has billions of live cultures, and then there's other vitamins and minerals in there that actually allow for a secondary benefit. So when we launched our first sort of range of non-dairy back in January, these deliver against your immunity support, focus, so that actually helps with your cognitive function, and energy as well, our focus and energy. And they're all slightly different blends, so this one's coconut, a little bit sort of sweeter, great on salads, curries. And again, this all comes back to this strategy of how can we make it as easy as possible for people to get into gut health.
And is this your first as a brand introduction to the ambient aisle?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay.
So we launched this D2C.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, D2C in January, because we wanted to use it as an opportunity to really understand how consumers are engaging with it, whether it works, and so far, I think we're 4.8 star reviews. Or something like that. It's doing really well. We're really starting to see repeat purchases coming through. So essentially, we're demonstrating the efficacy of it. We've got the credibility now that people are coming back. So absolutely, I would be expecting to see this in the main retail aisles very soon.
And with D2C, obviously, you get the benefit of having quite a close relationship with your customers. So how do you gather feedback and then implement that into your marketing strategies?
Well, we've got we haven't actually got a name for them. We need to come up with kind of a name for our community, a bit like hooligans and I haven't come up with that name yet, but we've actually got a really big fan base, and they're not shy in coming forward with positive and kind of negative feedback, totally unprompted, but actually we've got a really good program of constantly feeding them with relevant information, inspiring things around how to improve their gut health. I mean, a lot of them know how to do it, but to think about different. And we often engage them through surveys. We sometimes focus groups with them. But I've got this sort of ambition now to really step up this gut health community. And I talked at the beginning about this vision of being the go-to gut health brand. So the plan now and the ambition, hopefully this video will hold. Being saying this live will hold me to it is actually to create like the gut health community. And this isn't just about flogging our products, right? This is actually about education, working with our partner nutritionists, partner experts to really help people understand it doesn't have to be a task and a real effort to improve their health. And ultimately, whether that's through real life events, whether it's through online kind of Q&As, whether it's through ongoing content, there's a massive opportunity, and we're constantly being asked when can we do something about our consumers, and in terms of sort of using their feedback, we often engage them when we have the idea of sort of a new product concept, because it's good to understand like how would someone who's already bought into the brand, how do they perceive it? As we start to become more mainstream, we've got penetration of over 14% in the UK now as a
Amazing, wow.
which is amazing. So, what's that, 7.5 million consumers in the UK. So we're not this tiny little brand. We still have this passionate core following, but as we start to become more and get into the mainstream, it's really important that we continue to engage as many people as possible, because who are the early adopters are going to have a different view than kind of Alan and Hull.
Well, what is your target market? What would you say your consumers are?
Well, I mean, this is such an interesting question, because when we think about sort of gut health and what we offer, gut health, you've got this spectrum of consumers.
Everyone has a gut.
Yeah, everybody, absolutely. So, the ambition, 90% penetration.
Yeah.
Some way off, but we're getting there. But you've got people down one end which actually have a gut health problem. So, IBS, Crohn's disease. So they need to solve a problem. You've then got people who are aware of things like IBS and Crohn's, or their mate's got bad guts or whatever. So they're looking to get into gut health as a preventative measure. You've then got people who are just kind of balance seekers, and I think that this is the biggest kind of opportunity space for us, is those people who are just looking to get a better balance in life. What can I do on a daily basis that isn't going to disrupt my routine, that allows me to still have takeaway once a week, and I go for a few beers at the weekend, but actually overall it's going to improve my kind of health and wealth. But then right at the far end of the spectrum, and this is something that's kind of come to light in the past year, is elite sports people and athletes are using our products. So we are now official gut health partner to Wolverhampton Wanderers, Gloucester Rugby, British Judo, British Taekwondo, the guys that are about to go out to Paris Olympics.
Amazing.
That's sort of official gut health partner, and they approached us because all their athletes are already using our product. But we also supply, the Lionesses, England team, rugby and football. We're not official gut health partner, but because improving your microbiome actually helps with the speed of recovery, and it helps with your energy levels and your elite performance. So you ask, who's the target consumer? It quite literally spans everybody. So people who've got a gut problem to your weekend warrior who's training for their first marathon, better gut health and Kefir is that. Now, we do help them to have a target audience, and I talked about that bit in the middle of the balance seekers, but it's very attitudinal. My mum reads the back of packs on clean label after all this stuff in the news about ultra-processed food. So she's a target consumer in her early 70s, but then equally, my friends' very younger brothers and sisters who are sort of in their mid-20s or whatever, who really think about what they're putting in their bodies, they're a bang on target consumer, because they're much better educated around this new style of health and diet. So, which is great, because everyone should be consuming our products or getting better gut health, but actually it makes it very tricky for us as a brand to where do we put our money and how do we best identify who to go after, because we can't afford to go after everyone.
No, of course, but I think with what you offer to the customer, it is so broad. Like, you've got the guys that and also your range of products. So you've got things that are for the in-house, and you've got the grab and go offering. You've got the stuff that is to take to kids' lunch boxes. Like, you've got such a broad range of SKUs that can therefore be put in all different kind of parts of people's lives, which I also think is key to making sure that you are targeting the masses on the go, at home. You're seen everywhere, so a bit of a 360 approach with your products.
And look, this is a really great example of that. So this is our latest product launch that you can now get out in the retail market. Kefir overnight oats. Overnight oats is probably the biggest trending breakfast thing at the moment. And as is Kefir.
It has been since kind of lockdown, hasn't it?
It really has. So combining with gut health or natural gut health, these delicious products, they're both prebiotic and probiotics. So you've got the fibre, which ultimately feeds the probiotics, and then it's filled with our Kefir. So what we're doing is really tapping into adjacent trends, and how can we almost create delicious things in those spaces with the added benefit of gut health. And Kefir overnight oats is a perfect example of that people who might not ordinarily be looking in the main dairy aisle, actually they're looking for really delicious healthy breakfast options. And
which there aren't many of, are there?
Particularly not in food to go. We did this research in food to go and convenience recently. We had this fantastic lady, Tessa Stewart, who is brilliant at grabbing consumers at point of purchase, at shelves, and really get quickly into why they're buying certain things.
Yeah.
And we worked with her on a few kind of at shelf research products. And what became very evident is people going into kind of Sainsbury's local, Tesco at the grab and go section, they're looking for something that's healthy, and there's just nothing there that delivers against that. So as a kind of a health brand, we're looking at ways that we can find our place in there that delivers on something that's really delicious, because people want something that's tasty, but actually delivers against their sort of health needs too.
Also, that aisle is so processed.
Oh god, it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to name any particular brands, but they shouldn't be allowed there.
Yeah, I know, it is really bad. It's really hard though, if you're not educated and you're on a budget.
Exactly.
You are really, you are quite constrained on what you can get. But being in the dairy category, how do you set yourself apart from, I guess, like the big boys out there, the likes of Danone, the likes of, the Arla and the big dairy brands, because they've obviously got significantly deep pockets when they can go on marketing and sponsor these big events that, smaller brands can't. So how do you make sure that you differentiate yourself from brands that can come in and just put like 100k on the table and be like, right, I want a whole shelf in to just cover it all up and no one can know the brand.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always a challenge with the bigger brands. It's great when you're in them and you can do that, but when you're a challenger, and although we're the category leader in Kefir, actually growing the Kefir space, we are up against the Danones and the like, because we want to steal more share from the shelves that they're filling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's probably a number of things. We've just sort of gone through a reflection of where we're positioned, and everyone's piling into gut health. I mean, Yo Valley now have a Kefir, and they sit alongside us. Great dairy brand, delicious yogurts, but they're sort of piling into Kefir because they're following in our footsteps. Natasha pioneered this, and they want a piece of the action. Other people are piling into gut health and like BioMe.
I was going to say
as well. They've now got a Kefir, and the fact that the likes of Activia have changed to say gut health rather than digestive health. So I guess when we think about how we need to differentiate ourselves, from the positioning point of view, this natural is a really important piece. So we are the natural gut health solution. So that's sort of the first thing. But with that comes the education that we need to do as to why natural is better than just gut health. So that's one. I think the second thing is actually about being the innovative leader. When I look back to what Natasha's achieved in 12 years, and some of the things that she's tried through innovation and NPD, some have worked really well, some haven't. But our retail partners, they see us as the ones that are going to continue to pioneer and innovate in this category. So ensuring that we are still doing that is really important. So things like overnight oats, that's actually a world first. There is no gut health overnight oats that exists in the world. That's not. High protein drinks, which are launching in Sainsbury's later this year.
Amazing.
The first Kefir high protein drinks, all natural. Again, it's a world first.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. So all of these things that we're doing are things that haven't been achieved before. If they were easy to do, they would have been achieved. So I think that's sort of the second thing. And then the third thing really is about how do we show up in different ways. And I think there's a number of things that we do there. We are fortunate, we're still founder led, and to be able to have a founder brand and really leverage that as a spokesperson for the brand is really key. But then aside from that, actually, whilst we are going into some mainstream channels, the way that we've found success recently is actually about using real people and demonstrating the efficacy of our products. So a recent sort of campaign that we ran started in September last year, and then actually it's been continuous, is what we call the sort of 4-week gut health reset, where we engaged real people out there and then sort of followed them on their journeys over 4 weeks of using our product. These are people who didn't consume Kefir, and what's I say it's amazing to see. It's not amazing because we totally backed our product, but how it's actually changed their lives and made their lives better, because it's improved the way their body's functioning, it's improved their sleep.
There's such a big link, isn't there, with gut? Yeah.
There really is. But being able to then take, I guess, real life testimonials from these people and promote that and show that has been really, really powerful for us. But
is that a big way? Sorry to butt in there.
Yeah.
Is that a big way that you then Is that like an example of how you've used like customer feedback and how they've come to you and said this has done this, and then you try to reiterate that with your customers?
Well, I mean, we ever since Natasha's launched the business, like she's fully known the positive impact that Kefir can have on the body.
Yeah.
But you know, on an almost daily basis, we get emails in from our consumers, like quite literally thanking us. And we've been talking recently. We need to have a whole wall of like letters and emails that are coming in, because if some of the stuff that comes back, like we've quite literally transformed people's lives for the better.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to show this actually, you know, it gives us real credibility as a brand. And I do think because we are, you know, we're not a small brand, but we're a genuine, authentic brand that is founder-led. And what we're trying to do more is really show the people as well, because I'm a big believer people buy from people.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also through our marketing, showing real people's lives being, you know, impacted for the better through our products. So that's sort of another way that we're doing it. And I just don't think big brands can do that in the same way that challengers can. I just don't think
they can't be as reactive. I don't think they can't be like dynamic and quick changing, because there's lots of red tape involved to get to the top to get sign off.
And as you know, as much as the people at these bigger brands or dairy brands can, they're talented marketers or talented business people. I just don't think the consumers would buy into like an Activia or an Actimel in the same way. I mean, they could spend lots of money showing the positive impact, but I just don't think it would feel as authentic because they're such a big established brand. Whereas we've come in, we're doing something different, we're educating well, we're helping people understand the link between this natural gut health Kefir, and then by showing the genuine positive impact, it's working really well for us.
How do you measure your marketing campaigns in terms of like return on investment?
So I think it's probably no different to a lot of other brands. So, the classic brand tracking, and I referenced sort of earlier, we've got, when I came into the business, we wanted to understand, what's the state of play? And actually, those people who are aware of Biotiful, they really did think we were like a quality product, tasted great, natural. I was like, okay, well, that's great for the consumers who are buying it. But when we're sort of at the time maybe like 11% penetration and we want to be 20, 30, 40 long term, how were we perceived by people who weren't already using us, that were being exposed to us? And what became evident quite quickly is we weren't necessarily perceived as really tasty, even though we know when you try it, people are like, oh God, that tastes really amazing. Because Kefir is still relatively unknown thing. I'm like, I didn't really know what Kefir was when I was headhunted for the job. And obviously I now do, but a lot of people still don't really know what it is. Second thing was, were we communicating taste? Were we communicating quality? So what we quickly did was start to evolve how we were showing up, so that people who were discovering us for the first time through communication in particular, they immediately thought, okay, that looks really tasty, that looks really good quality and really looks natural.
Your packaging also screams all that. It screams natural and like clean. It doesn't look overcrowded with like sugary things to be like, oh gosh, I wouldn't touch it.
So going back to like how do we sort of track success? So there's a number of ways. So the typical, are we growing our awareness? Ultimately, are we growing penetration off the back of things?
How do you measure your penetration?
Using sort of Kantar data, and then looking at our kind of retail volumes and EPOS data, and in terms of what then the frequency and weight of purchases. But the same that any other brand would use that can afford to buy Kantar data. And then so we do sort of the basics, awareness, penetration, but then also looking at how we're perceived through our communication. And I think this is, as we repositioned ourselves to be the natural gut health solution, what's been really great is that our communications are delivering that, because 90% of the people who do come across us, first and foremost, isn't going to necessarily be through taste straight away. So we need to land these things through all the touch points we're showing up, from whether it be our latest TV campaign, which we just ran, which I'd recommend watching if you haven't, listeners, through to digital touch points, and even shopper, how we're showing up on an ARFIN, because it is a really competitive space.
So
you've already talked about people people are confused. They don't really know what's good, what's bad. So we have a duty to try and make that as simple as possible to understand. And then ultimately, I guess the other area we measure success, because we are a commercial business, is it driving ultimately rate of sale and weight of purchase and overall volume. So yeah, nothing particularly new.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think with marketing, it's so sales in terms of rate of sale, it's very easy. Like, how much money is this going to bring in? You can track sales performance, like literally with numbers. With marketing, you can spend, £4 million on a campaign, and to track the rate of sale is so tough to see a Joe driving a Fiat Force or your campaign on the billboards. Like, that piece of it I find really fascinating when I speak to brands. It is really difficult to track that rate of sale, but ultimately, it's is your sales growing? Are you penetrating the market? Are more people buying you? And is your followers on like Instagram going up? Is your awareness going up as a brand?
But one of the things I've found that quite common across fast growth brands actually is not seeing how you're being perceived by non-consumers when you do things like brand tracking. Because if you're a big established brand, you're probably, unless you do a complete rebrand, you're probably not going to see perception scores change. And also, big household brands are known by 60, 70, 80% of the population, like they're aware of them. But if you're a brand that's coming from 5%, 10%, 15% national awareness, actually it's really important to track not just how you're perceived by people who are aware of you, but actually the people who are not aware of you in their first exposure to your brand, both through your packaging, which is 90% of the first exposure when you're walking down an aisle, to communications. And actually I've never ever gone and worked in an SME brand or been involved and advised an SME brand that's actually tracking kind of brand perception and then using that data from how you're perceived by non-buyers or people who are not even aware of you to then evolve how you're showing up or how you're going to evolve your branding, etc. And actually that's a really good tip for kind of challenger brand marketers, that you should be looking at that, because when last year when we did this, we had maybe 10-15% national awareness. That means 85% of the people who were doing the survey and the tracker, actually they're really valuable for this, and that then helped inform how do we continue to evolve the brand and everything we do. Yeah,
for sure. You've got some of the people that aren't buying you as well to be like, right, how do we grab them in? Like, what is it that they're looking for that we're not giving them for them to... I mean, the benefit that you guys have is, as we've obviously spoken about quite a lot, is that the penetration of dairy is generally quite big. So the benefit that you have is that most people are walking already down your aisle. You're not in the back corner of a supermarket trying to sell loads of product. Like, your lane has lots of footfall. So you've got that benefit. So it's then thinking, right, how do I stand out to the people that are going down that aisle but haven't even clocked us as a brand?
So we came up with this fantastic campaign last year to try and do that, called the Try Me Love Me campaign. That was all about activating in retail. We did it across all the retailers, and it quite literally was try me, love me, or your money back. And that sounds proper old school kind of sales promotion, but equally we are so confident in the quality of our product that we were happy to basically give the money back to anyone.
And did you get many refunds?
We had 17.
Whoa, okay. Yeah,
I mean, the golden quarter was our biggest quarter, 50% growth year on year. Yeah. We had 17 people ask for their money back,
Right. You can't please everyone.
Exactly. They're probably just the people who like to do that anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't probably, even if I did, here's the time.
Yeah. Well, and when you're absolutely right, it's a big kind of footfall aisle, but as a brand that's unknown, as a category Kefir, people are still a bit suspicious about it. How do we encourage people to kind of move away from just buying natural yogurt or the protein or the skyr, which is better known, and come into that and actually demonstrated that people do actually still like the no risk trial stuff. So back to the old days of Churchill Insurance, like if you're not happy with your quote, we'll lower it or
yeah. It's a good way though, because for me that would entice me to try it. I'd be like, okay, if I've got a safety net of I can get my cash back in a time when cost of living is a thing and everything, I would be more likely to try it, because I'd be like, okay, well I've got that sort of cushioning, which is really important. Can you discuss a time when data-driven insights led a significant sort of change in your marketing approach?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably the most fundamental, it actually wasn't Biotiful, but I've actually taken the approach that we did at Fever Tree to that. I was just talking about how through sort of brand tracking research to understand how non-consumers, non-buyers and people who aren't even aware of your brand are equally as important when you're sort of tracking your brand health. And actually what I discovered quite quickly going into the Fever Tree brand was that people who hadn't tried it didn't perceive the brand as premium. So as a premium mixer business, which was twice the price of Schweppes' own label, when people were first discovering it, they didn't think it was premium. So why would they be paying a price premium?
Interesting.
So it's easy to overcome that when you're in the on-trade in bars because you ask for a gin and tonic and you're kind of given what's available. But in retail, that was a major barrier to penetration. So we sort of took this insight, and that's actually what drove the entire brand refresh that you see today. These bright effervescent colours, the premium look and feel. We moved away from kind of gold and black, which was sort of 90s faux luxury, to the brand that you see everywhere around the world today. So that's probably the most fundamental time I've done that. Another actually example, and something that again I use as a tip now, is to look at kind of geographical data. Because often you can say, okay, sales are going up, brilliant, but are there certain regions in which things are happening, and how can you leverage that? I spent a short time sort of bringing and establishing there's a cleaning product brand called Co into the UK. It's this Australian cleaning product, one spray cleans everything, and it's relatively actually its infancy in the UK, but sales are like going really, really quickly. And I thought, well, is there a disparity between regional locations? And discovered all of the repeat purchases were actually coming through Scotland. I thought, okay, well, why is that? So we started looking into different reasons why, and what can we learn that we can then see the growth rate happen in other regions, because it was off the scale. Actually, it came down to, I can't even remember how we discovered it, but came down to really investigating that it was down to water type, so soft water versus hard water areas, and the efficacy of the spray. So what we found was in soft water areas, it was far more efficacious than it was in hard water areas.
Isn't that fascinating?
So what that then allowed us to do is actually develop a sort of a digital marketing plan, the performance marketing element of it, to go more after soft water areas, because we know that once we got a consumer in, they were more likely to repeat purchase because it was really, really working.
Whoa, that's so fascinating.
Sometimes it's about looking in places that you don't necessarily realise.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you talk about sort of data-led versus kind of gut-led. I use the pun here. There's this brilliant time at Fever Tree where we just couldn't understand why our ginger beer, which by the way is just it's delightful, versus you then try ginger beer, other brands that don't even taste the ginger. In the German market, we were just not seeing our brand really take off, whereas ginger beer sales were sort of going through the roof. And actually, it wasn't until we were just sort of walking down the aisle in one of the German supermarkets that we just clocked that everything was in like 1 litre bottles, and we were in 500ml bottles. And through data, maybe we could have identified that, but actually being there physically in the aisle and just sort of suddenly going, oh, yeah, that just looks tiny. Looks kind of tiny. So we then went through this. It was actually a massive packaging innovation piece to be able to create a glass bottle that was 750ml because of the pressure in them. You don't want glass.
Yeah.
Suddenly once that went in, suddenly the sales went off the scale. So data is really, really important. But honestly, you can't just sit behind your desk and look at data. Like, you've got to get out there into the market and physically see what's happening. And sometimes the combination of the two is that sort of penny drop moment.
What trends do you see shaping the dairy industry, and how is Biotiful Gut Health prepared to kind of capitalise on them going forward?
So, I mean, the obvious one, and I still think it's still in its infancy, is gut health. Right, the Kefir.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Up until about 6 months ago, protein was the biggest growing category in dairy. Kefir is now dwarfing that. which is brilliant for us
Yeah.
and brilliant for the nation. So I think this gut health element, and everywhere you turn now, people are talking about gut health. I mean, I was in my local health club the other day, and sort of the massage parlour within there, sort of health parlour, they're doing now gut health like seminars, and you can go and have consultations around how to improve gut. So I think that's just going to go and continue. Ultra processed foods, again, this is the education around that is just starting to really fly. I mean, I was reading an article the other day, I think 13 million people last year have now started changing their shopping behaviours because of EPS, and that's only going to continue to increase. And I think as a result, this trend of clean label is really going to start to come through. And I think specifically in dairy, clean label and what we call clean protein as well, because when you look at the whole dairy category, you've got Kefir, which is just flying, and we'll continue to innovate and lead in that space. And then you then got like protein, and for example, this is one of our products. So
yeah, I want to try this.
So our Kefir protein. So there's lots of other brands that do protein. This is protein, 30 grams of natural protein in one pot.
No, that's so high, because I'm a
it
consumer of protein products, and I've not seen a 30 gram one.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that's probably a double serving, but actually you need about 1 gram of protein per kilo body weight a day, ideally.
Yeah, you should do this in a...
Well, yeah. So we've our Kefir protein, but this is all, it's protein plus. It's protein plus gut health.
Yeah.
So
functional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then with this, it's not just the one product. We have flavoured products. We've got smaller serves for on the go. So I think this clean protein isn't going away either.
No.
So as a brand, it's really exciting for us because we're best placed to, I think, capitalise on those two big trends that are still going ahead.
And what are your top priorities this year? And how is the marketing be playing into it?
That's a really good question. I mean, I can probably talk about my priorities, maybe not so about what the tactics are going to do yet, because I'll give all the secrets away. But I think for us as a brand, we still have relatively low awareness. Probably a third of the national population are now aware of Biotiful, which is a massive step up from where we were a year ago.
To me, seems like still a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, and that's just off the back of, believe it or not, our recent TV campaign. People say, no one watches TV anymore. Well, I've got data to prove that is not the case. And
do you watch TV?
Yeah, it's usually on in the background. I still watch live TV, but I'm old and boring. So
I don't. Everyone my age, none of us watch telly.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I put my TV on. Genuinely, months ago.
Even to watch like YouTube or things like that.
Laptop or phone, iPad in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, very rarely watch live telly. Parents, grandma obsessed.
Yeah.
She gets out her newspaper and goes, right, I want to watch this. Where do you even find those pages?
Yeah. But I think that's a really good point in terms of like, how do we approach and really grow our awareness and drive our penetration. There's not just one channel to go after now. Actually, TV's just worked really, really well for us because we are going after if you're 18 to 80 or even older.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone, I don't want to stereotype it. If you're an older generation, you probably do watch more linear TV. But then the younger generation, how can we be more targeted? How can we do, whether it's YouTube, whether it's using really interesting data through what people are searching for on Amazon and then targeting people through Amazon Prime TV, down to digital, working with influencers to show real life kind of efficacy. But I guess for us, our priority really is about, it sounds so rudimentary, but growing our awareness and educating on how simple gut health can be, whether that is through the Kefir, whether it's as an adjacency, going to protein, because a lot more people are coming into protein, partly because brands like us are doing clean protein, because we do know a lot of people are leaving it because of the kind of the UPFs and a lot of
sweeteners and things.
But then equally things like the meal boosters, and actually how do we allow people to not have to change what they're doing, but instead enhance their routine as it is. So I guess first and foremost, we continue to grow our brand fame, but through a relevant way. I think secondly, really, we've got the credibility on a small scale, but how do how do we work more with all of our kind of credible partners, whether that's these elite sports teams that we're partnering with, which are genuine, authentic partnerships, through to kind of the nutritionists and the like. And again, it all comes back to this vision that I talked about at the beginning of helping people realise how simple being having a healthier gut can be.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much for you to go after and so much you've done, and like it's pretty amazing. And I'm fascinated by like gut health, and I think it is so important in your overall well-being, because if you're not eating well, like I know for me personally, it's the first thing. If I eat really rubbishly, it does really affect my sleep. I've got low mood, I can't be energized. Like, I'm a very active individual, so if I need to balance that with eating really well, because I just can't perform at my best. But yeah, there's so much exciting stuff for you. I can't wait to see kind of the evolution of Biotiful and where it goes. Before we end the interview, I'd love to know, how do you consume Biotiful?
So, I have my daily morning little bottle in the office, and then usually Kefir protein in the afternoon. I'm quite an active person as well, and that sort of afternoon slump that you get, I just find that it's filling and keeps you going, Ken, and particularly with some of the more indulgent flavours that are now coming in. So, but then I've forced it upon my kids. They love the kids Kefir that we've got, as well as wanting to try anything new. They're sort of my own product tasters. A 10-year-old and 7-year-old will give very honest feedback. But again, it's really simple. I found it not disruptive in any way to sort of feature in my daily routine. And again, probably sounds really biased, but I've not felt ill or had any illness whatsoever since being in the business for 15 months. And as Natasha was telling me, well, that's because you drink Kefir daily.
There it is, guys, the magical thing you all need in your diet, Biotiful Gut Health. Thank you so much, Vince, for coming on Getting to Grow. It's been fascinating learning all about it, but also your amazing career as well.
Well, thanks very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.